This is The Clash, where the real world clashes with a true Christian worldview. Join former professional wrestler Chris Whaley, known as the Masked Saint, who is an author, pastor, and teacher that brings his wrestling skills into the squared circle and tackles real-life issues. Along with Jeff Dixon, best-selling author, internationally known teacher, leader, and pastor who is not afraid to tackle the tough issues of the world we live in. Together they form a tag team of wisdom in The Clash.
Hi, welcome to The Clash, where we take a Christian worldview and allow it to clash, collide into the culture and world around us. And hopefully when we're done, we come up with about 30 minutes of entertaining, insightful, invigorating,
expansive,
and meaningful conversation that will change your life and hopefully you'll enjoy. I'm Jeff Dixon. I'm joined by the one, the only, the saint, Chris Whaley. How you doing, Chris?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Hanging in there.
Good. What are we talking about today? You know anything? What we're doing?
Jeff, you know, as we are taping this, the night before, we saw live and in color on TV, Israel attacking the Iranian nuclear sites and some other military places and it's just kind of been nonstop news since that operation happened.
It's been pretty fascinating too because we're watching in real time as these things are happening and as the counterattack and then the second wave of attacks have taken place.
Right.
I mean, I'll admit, I mean, for us as we're recording right now, and Chris is not overstating that. I mean, it is unfolding even as we speak. It actually changed the direction of what we were going to record today to do this Operation Rising Lion episode. I mean, it was amazing to me how quickly all of a sudden the entire news cycle had all the air sucked out of it. I mean, it was just gone, and we went from whatever the junk was that we were listening to and being entertained by, where this was it. And there's something about it that's really kind of fascinating as you start watching it.
Oh, yeah.
How did you feel? I mean, are you bothered by it? Are you intrigued by it? Is it scary? What's the feeling you got?
It brings all kinds of questions to mind. You know, of course, as a pastor, you know this. You're the pastor of our church, and if you were to count how many people came up to you and said, "Pastor, are we living in the last days?" You know, you've had a few of those, right?
Yeah. I got some texts in the middle of the night about that.
Yeah. So it brings about a lot of questions. But regardless of that, Jeff, I've read the end of the book. We win.
Yeah.
So whatever happens, I know how the book ends. And I'm okay with it. However God does it's fine with me, because I know that, as believers, we're in His hand, and we'll just trust Him.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and that's good news. And that's probably the good news that we want to start this episode with. Right. And we're going to come back after we take a quick break, and we're going to kind of do, in real time, some stuff that's going to kind of talk through what's going on, what we see, the implications of it for Christians, and hopefully give you something that you can kind of hold on to, maybe at least one idea that will help you as you watch the news for the next couple of days.
Give you encouragement.
Yeah. But until then, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Right. Jeff, we got some dead air time. What are you doing?
Chris, I'm looking at the Church at 434 app. It's an incredible app. It's absolutely free. And you can watch us, you can watch video, you can get resources for your walk and your journey of faith, and it's absolutely free. Just go to the Church at 434 and your app store, Google Play, and just download it and join us online all the time. Welcome back. As we're recording this, if you were with us when the show started, you know what we're talking about. The world is at war right now, Chris.
Yeah.
While we were talking, the world is at war.
Yeah.
And everyone is just kind of glued to their television sets or hunkered down in bunkers somewhere and trying to watch and figure out what's happening and what they need to think.
Yeah.
What's your general impression of what's happened over the last few hours?
It's like I was hoping that things would not escalate to the point where they are right now. But deep down, I had this feeling, hey, it's just a matter of time, and something's going to happen.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly with President Trump that, Iran should never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. They've been shouting not only death to Israel, they've been shouting death to America.
Yeah.
And, they hate Israel. And I was thinking this morning, Jeff, why do they hate us so much? But we're a Christian nation, supposedly a Christian nation, supposed to be a Christian nation. And, who is our Savior? A Jew.
Yeah.
So that's another reason for them to hate us.
Well, yeah. I mean, when, probably another episode, another time, we can look at the big picture. I mean, we try to figure out why America even exists, and we are. One of the things is because I'm convinced that we exist to be an ally and protector of Israel,
Right,
as needed. I as I was watching or hearing last night in the middle of the night, the newscasters and listening to people talking about it, I was absolutely struck by the fact that Israel was able to fly in 200 airplanes past what was reported to be one of the strongest anti-aircraft defense systems in the world,
right.
supposedly, were able to go in and hit the nuclear facilities and target leaders and get back out without one iota of defensive measures taken by Iran.
Well,
I mean, they went in there, blitzed the place, and got back out, and there was no reaction.
One of the things that, I heard last night on news, and I'm sure you did too, depending on which news source you had, was that they were receiving a lot of help from Iranians who do not want the current regime in power anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So, they probably had a lot of help in doing what they did last night.
Well, again, I think it was a long time in the making and the planning. Obviously, Israel does have a track record of doing that. Go back to the pager,
right?
Excursion from earlier in the year where they deposited those pagers that blew up at the same time on people. But but again, I think there's a lot of things that have been unfolding that have kind of set this up and maybe made the timing right on it. And I think that that's something that sometimes, gets lost. But if you think about it, back in October, a year ago, when Israel was kind of drawn into that war in Gaza, right, with Hamas.
Actually, almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Where they were drawn into that war by Hamas. What has happened over that past 2 years is that Hamas has been greatly weakened, no matter how blustery they get.
Oh yeah.
They have weakened them. And if you go back and you start looking at some of the historical things that have happened over the past 2 year period, Israel has very much been picking off some of those proxies that Iran normally would have said, hey, we're not going to attack them, but you attack them. I mean, and so part of what's happened, I think, if much as anything else, is just timing.
All right.
They have set the stage. They teed it up. They've got some of those proxies that are no longer as strong as they used to be, or just shadows of themselves. And so, if anything else, it was timing is everything.
Right.
And we were talking off camera, as the president has been negotiating with them. Weren't they in a 60-day?
Yeah, Trump gave them 60 days, and today is, as we're taping, today is day 61.
So they hit the end of the 60 days, and then all of a sudden, boom, they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Do you think any of that has to do with the fact that Iran so many times, through so many different administrations, so many different pages of history, have been notorious for playing this long game, this waiting game of we're negotiating, we're not negotiating, I'm going to be truthful, not truthful. In some ways, were they doing that again, do you think?
Yeah. I think if there's any nation in the world that hated the fact that Donald Trump got reelected, it was Iran.
Yeah.
Because if you'll remember, in his first his first presidency, he literally brought Iran to their knees.
Yeah.
And was hoping for some kind of agreement with them, but then, he lost the election. And immediately after losing the election, Biden just lifted all of the sanctions against them. They brought them to their knees. They immediately were able to get their hands on like $300 billion, which, they used to fund Hamas and the I forget the other ones that are down. What was the ones that were firing the missiles at the ships?
Well, you got
The Houthis.
The Houthis, yeah.
So they're able to fund all of this, terrible things that are happening. So, yeah, would you say it's a coordinated effort?
Well, yeah, I would. I mean, I think if the first, if one factor might have been the fact that Israel has weakened a lot of their enemies. I think another factor in this timing being right is because of the administration that's currently in Washington. I mean, a new player is definitely in town. I think the relationship between Trump and Netanyahu is pretty well documented. And I think it is possible for Israel certainly to act alone. But I also think that as their strongest ally, we're going to hear what's going on. We were also talking, I told you I called out and reached out to one of our sources. Go figure, we got sources. Anyway, our sources in Jerusalem today from a bunker was sharing the fact that, as it's being reported there, the U.S. was very much aware that this was going to unfold. They were very much aware of when it was going to unfold. And so even as the official statements we're hearing out of Washington, from the president, from the administration, are all towing the same company line that they were not involved. True. Were they aware? Yes. Was the timing on purpose? Yes. And was this 60-day negotiation designed to maybe lull Iran into this false sense of security? Because it's never happened this way before. And the belief, at least out of Jerusalem at this time, is that that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And so very, very, very calculated, very much due to the fact that Iran just can't have a nuclear weapon, and they're much closer to it than anybody ever thought.
Right. And Trump has been trying, ever since he assumed office, he's been trying over and over to get a settlement with Iran. And, we can't blame him for this because he's tried to, we want peace. And I've heard him say he wants great things for the Iranian people, but they just can't have a nuclear weapon. And I agree wholeheartedly with that, too.
Well, and I also think that one of the things that we're hearing, and one of the things that's happening right now, too, and again, this is happening in real time as we're talking, so by the time this episode airs, I mean, this may be a done deal. But, the strikes that Israel did, extensive. They went after the nuclear facilities, the nuclear research facilities, the development, where they're developing these weapons at. They went after
the ballistic
missiles, and the way that those ballistic missiles will be deployed and fired. I mean, all of that, and then the leaders.
Yeah, 4 of those, right? Or 5.
Very much, precision strikes. In the midst of that, interesting enough, the president has also thrown out that lifeline to say, look, let's get back to the table, let's negotiate, and this all comes to an end.
Right.
And there can be peace.
Right.
Now, I think that's very telling. Okay? So now you're dealing with an Iran who is seriously weakened, who in some ways may very well be on the ropes. And the President of the United States, once again, has tried to take the route of diplomacy with the understanding that if it does not work, this is just a preview of what's yet to come.
Yeah.
I think it says a great deal about foreign policy. I think it says a great deal about the way that we're doing things today.
Right.
And I think it reveals part of the character and the philosophy of our administration in the United States as to how to deal with bad actors on a world stage.
Right. Well, Jeff, I mean, I know we need to take a break, but I'd like to ask the question, what do you think the mindset is of the American people concerning this issue?
Well, I mean, I think the American people are going to be as divided when it comes to the media and the pundits and the politicians as it always is. I think that the bulk of America is concerned from the standpoint because no one wants to go to war.
Right.
And I don't think that's what it means for us.
Right.
But I also think that there is a groundswell of just a right and a wrong that emerges from this. And so, depending on who you listen to, again, if you get sucked into the world of talking heads, if you get sucked into the world of news cycles and pundits, you're going to hear stuff all over the planet.
Right.
And we're going to be very divided. I think, though, that for the most part, grassroots rural America I think there is a sense of understanding and inevitability that this day was going to come. Now, I could be wrong about that.
No, I think you're spot on.
Okay.
I really do.
We do need to take a break, but what we're going to do is come back after the break and probably do the most important thing we can do. Let's talk about how we as followers need to view this, what kind of lens we need to put on so we can understand it, so we're not scared, so we're encouraged, and we can also have some truth to hold on to that will help us do this time in this page of human history.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll be right back.
You haven't talked in a while. What have you been doing?
Well, I appreciate you asking me, Chris, because, interesting enough, I have a new book coming out. That's right. About the time you're watching this, January. Saving the Magic Kingdom, a brand new Dixon on Disney novel. Coming out, brand new publisher, Magic Press Publishing, over-the-top adventure, happening at Walt Disney World. So yeah, I've been writing a book and it's coming out and I'm excited about it. I hope our folks will take a moment and go out to the favorite bookseller or check it out on Amazon.
As a big fan of Dixon, I've read your other novels and they are super. So don't forget to get this one.
That's right. Now I'll pay you as soon as we're done with this advertisement. But it's coming out. It's called Saving the Magic Kingdom, an adventure that takes place inside of Walt Disney World, and it comes out in January of this year. Pre-orders happening now. Hey, welcome back. We're in the midst of recording an episode where we're talking about what's happening right now in Israel and Iran. As we're recording, the news reports are there. There is a battle going on. It is a war, and the fighting continues. Chris, as we get into this, I mean, okay, so we're Christians. You and I are both pastors.
Right.
We lead groups of people who are asking a question, and you know what? It is a fair question. As Christians, how do we view, from a Christian ethical standpoint, what we're seeing play out in the news? Because again, we're going to hear talking heads say Israel has attacked Iran, and that's bad. We're going to hear others say that no, Iran deserved to be attacked, needed to happen. How do we land on that? How can we help people navigate that?
Well, you know, Iran has said that they don't want peace with Israel. They want to eradicate them. So it brings about the question, well, let me just ask you this, Jeff. As Americans here in the United States of America, do we have the right to protect ourselves?
We do. And I think as a Christian, it is safe to say that any nation has a moral, ethical right to defend its people.
Right.
And I think even as we start this conversation, you know, one of the speed bumps you have to come to grips with and get across is simply this. If we were talking about a situation where there was peace in the Middle East and Israel just randomly attacked Iran, then of course at that point I think you have to stand and you have to condemn it and say, you know, what are you thinking? What are you doing? But that's built upon the false notion that there's peace in the Middle East.
And there's not.
There's never been peace in the Middle East. It is not at peace at all.
No.
And as you mentioned, I mean, we've got a nation over there, Iran, who has threatened to destroy and obliterate Israel and America. So you've got to get over that speed bump. So this is not an attack on a peaceful nation at a time of peace.
It's not grounded in vengeance.
No.
It's grounded in justice.
It's grounded in justice.
Right.
And it's grounded in justice for protection, and there's a sense of rightness about that. I mean, and that, that's uncomfortable for followers sometimes. I mean, for some folks who have have followed Jesus. I mean, I get it. There can be a struggle there.
Right.
And maybe some of our audience is struggling with it. But again, I think it bears repeating what you said. This is not about vengeance.
Yeah.
This is about rightness.
You think Israel's done everything they could to try to garner that peace that they have been seeking?
Well, I think Israel's got a pretty strong track record of giving up a lot of land and a lot of concessions.
Right.
Under this idea of we'll live at peace.
Right.
Which again is, man, that's like eating cotton candy. You know, it's not real. It doesn't last. It doesn't stick with you.
And it hasn't helped.
No, it doesn't help. And this concept of trying to live at peace, I think gets a little bit wonky, because if you decide, okay, I have to wait for someone to attack me before I can go back and attack them. I mean, there's going to be there's a doctrine of first strike in there somewhere, right? I mean, you have to calculate, you have to decide,
right,
and you have to know when it's time to go. Or the aggressor always gets the first shot in. How's that work in wrestling?
Well, it doesn't work very well.
No, it doesn't. I mean, and I think the same thing is true though when it comes to how we deal and how we interface as a nation. And I think for followers, I get it. It creates a certain level of discomfort, but we have to get comfortable with it from the standpoint of understanding it.
Yeah, and of course we know the rising anti-Semitism that has happened in our nation, Jeff. I mean, we see what's happening on college campuses and all. So, is it best to just sit back and do nothing, or does a nation have the right to look into the future and prepare for situations? And I think Israel has done that.
I agree. I mean, yeah, I think it's, and I think you have to take an honest look at Iran. Iran as a regime has proven over numerous presidencies and administrations that they cannot be trusted. They operate out of chaos and confusion. And so fast forward then, if you're their next door neighbor, can you trust this habitual lying regime to become the possessor of a nuclear weapon?
Yeah. Why are so many Iranians trying to get out of Iran also?
Sure, of course they are.
So many of them trying to get, when I was in Texas in my last 3 years in wrestling, I wrestled an Iranian. And I had the opportunity to talk to him in the dressing room, and I said, why did you get out of Iran, man? He said, nobody wants to live there.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an Iranian that said that. He said, it's a terrible situation. You live in constant fear. And I'm just so glad as Americans that we don't have to deal with what those people deal with. And I can understand why that some of them are trying to help the Israelis also.
Sure. Well, I think again, there are going to be some that are going to hear this and go, well, I completely disagree with you, yo-yos, and what you're saying. And that's okay. Yeah, that's what happens with yo-yos. You're up and down. But, Romans 13, if we're going to get biblical here.
Yeah.
Romans 13 lays the foundation that a government exists to restrain evil, to protect the innocent,
right,
and to sometimes bear the sword. That's what the Bible says.
Yep.
We didn't make that up. It's not a license to greenlight violence, but it's a sober acknowledgement, I think, of the state's responsibility in a world where evil regimes do exist.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those times that Romans 13 concept comes into play. And I think that's biblical. We don't, I mean, again, people get nervous about, God and country and putting God in governments and things like that. But I mean, the Bible does speak to these kinds of issues.
Right.
And so that's what the Bible lays out as a responsibility role of government. So in some ways you have to then ask yourself the question, and so is Israel doing that? And then from that benchmark, are they doing something that is allowable? And from the evidence, I think they are.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. And I'm thinking about if Iran were allowed to get that nuclear weapon, What do you think that would do to the Middle East?
Oh, I think it would. And I don't mean this in a funny way. It would light up the Middle East.
Yeah.
Because at that point, then the balance of power, tilts in a way that it hasn't before. And so Iran having a nuclear weapon with the people that they have threatened, and it only takes one.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Just
take.
one.
It doesn't take 9 like they're talking about. It only takes one. That radically can change the landscape of the Middle East.
Oh, yeah.
And even America.
Right.
In a way that would just absolutely be horrifying.
Right.
And so I mean I think, I think this is a war right now that really has implications far beyond the borders of Israel, far beyond the borders of Iran, and that's where American involvement becomes something that becomes interesting.
Right.
Now, do you think we're going to put troops over there?
Do I think we ought to put troops over there?
No. I said, do you think we will?
Oh.
No, I'm not asking you to make the call, General. I'm just asking, do you think we should?
Yeah. If I think it's higher than 50-50 that we will.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I've wrestled with that, because that's one of your fears when you watch and you hear this and you think, oh my gosh, are our military going to have to go back? I mean, it seems like we have fought forever. I think if you go back to our first segment, we talked about what, the timing and setting the stage for this. I think the Middle East, because of what Israel has been doing and what the United States has been helping Israel do, may have poised the conflict for a time such as this where we don't have to.
Right.
I think because Iran really is in a weakened state. Now, they're unpredictable, but let's say they do take that lifeline that President Trump has thrown out, and they do get to the table. I mean, they couldn't stop Israel from attacking them, which means that Israel's going to be able to do over the next few days anything they want to do.
Right.
And they're going to go as far as they want to go.
Yeah.
I believe they'll have restraint. But I mean, they have the ability already. And Israel has a nuclear weapon. So I mean, it's one of those scenarios where you would hope that the end result of this brings a very uneasy tension to the Middle East, but one where we don't physically have to go and put troops on the ground.
Right.
Because the nature of warfare has changed a lot anyway.
We can only hope and pray that Israel is able to do, what they have intended to do, and that is completely eradicate the possibilities of a nuclear weapon. And I think once that is complete, then they're not going to be hitting Iran anymore.
Well, yeah, there's nothing about the nature of Israel and the way they have operated where they are looking to be occupiers. Right. Contrary to the dunderheads that are talking about that they're occupying the Gaza Strip and things like that.
Yeah.
That's not the case at all. And so there's no common sense, no historical, no reality in the fact that they're going to occupy or want to occupy or take over Iran. They do not.
No.
And I think that that's good news.
Yeah.
For all of us.
Right.
It's tough because we're supposed to be peacemakers. We know that, right? Yeah. And as individuals, we can be.
Right.
But I even think that peacemakers have to understand the reality of the global minefield that we live in.
Right.
And
it's amazing how quick this has gone by, Jeff, and we still haven't cracked the surface.
No, we really haven't cracked the surface. I mean, any words of wisdom that you want to share with our folks before we wrap up?
Jeff, we were talking before we went on the air that hey, we've read the end of the book and we know how it's going to end, and so that's the good news. We know the end of the book, so you remember that and don't tap out.